Welcome back to part 2 of Living
That sounds
Unashamed
creepy. Stop it.
on Codependency, part 2, featuring our guest, Jane Ellswood, CFO of Unashamed and Afraid. Part 2,
Stephen,
how
I
to
only
break
did this
my
because
codependency.
I'm being codependent with you. And if you keep talking like that, I'm going to leave.
It's going to be really awkward in the middle of this episode.
Just all of a sudden
She's
the
like,
mic
"I'm
just
out."
like drops. And she's
Boing! And then we're like, whatever, where we're at. Okay, so if you don't know, now you know. That was the last episode. Go back and listen to it. Codependency, you probably got some. Check it out. Doesn't mean you are codependent and that your spouse's addiction is your fault. And your addiction is your own fault. Do the things. Take care of business. But how do I get out? How do I break my codependent behaviors?
I think one of the first things you got to do is recognize the behavior.
Agree?
You got to be able to understand what you're actually doing and why you're doing it. Like, how often is it coming up? And you can even review your day and be like, what were my codependent behaviors today? Because then you can really check it out and see what
Check out where you were
behaviors came out
resentful.
and
Check out where you were resentful.
how did I try to manage someone else's emotions?
Yep.
How did I try to manipulate a situation?
So one, it would be really great to learn what codependency is and what common codependent behaviors look like, so that you can become self-aware about what you're doing.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I think, not to cop out, I think this is one of the big places for me around my codependency, that shame work, particularly like inner child work, was a really, really big deal.
Yeah.
Because for me to reclaim the part of me that just has needs and to label that part of me not as unworthy, for me, one of the big changes for me was being in an intensive workshop group, and I'm doing this piece of work, and I took it back to when I was 12, and I was in this therapist's office, and I grew up in holiday, upper middle class, affluent stuff. This therapist is asking me, do you know how to do basic hygiene? Do you know how to get food? Can you go to a friend's house? Like, and I'm like, this is crazy town, right? And I remember feeling so, like, I'll tell people, like, my childhood ended that day. And so I'd set up this scene, psychodramatically, set up this scene of this 12-year-old, and I'm like all huffing around, like I'm all mad, like mom and dad abandoned him, like other people, no one showed up for him. Then having the shocking realization that who abandoned him the most? Me, right? And so to me, I think that shame part, because like if you're not worthy of your needs, I don't know how you ever even see the codependency, let alone do something about it. For me, not a chance. I was like, run the codependency up, try and make killing everyone else happy. When you can't make the math add up, go act out to fill the gap, and then rinse and repeat. And I think if you can't find that love for yourself, I think you're dead on arrival.
Correct. I agree. I think my story a little different from yours, but the way in which I found my codependency, I guess, how it broke in mine and Christy's relationship was when, frankly, when she left, and I knew she was like trying to decide whether or not we were going to be married anymore. And at that point, I kind of realized.
And you responded super maturely.
Sure.
That's another episode.
That's the part that's missing out of my episode. It's episode like 2 or 3 or 4 if you want to go check it out.
Yeah, but
it's not there.
Yeah, but tell the story as it happened.
Yeah, as it happened is, anyway, so codependently, I withheld the truth again in order to manage her emotions.
Uh-huh.
As the truth comes out, she's like, I'm so sick of this. And so she decides, she's like, look, I need a break. I'm going to go get with God and like figure out if this is a relationship I still want to be in. That blew me up. And I saw in myself a lot of behaviors, attitudes, thoughts, and everything that I just was super not proud of. I was like...
Well, to quote you, you kind of freaked out.
Oh, yeah. That's putting it mildly.
Like you flipped out.
Totally flipped out, yeah.
Tantrum, all that.
I was all over the place. Up, down, right? I'd be mad, then I'd be super depressed. Like, I was all over. And really, to me, that was eye-opening because I was like, wow, this is so disorienting to me to have her gone. I'm like, I am like a planet that has lost its orbit, which, hallelujah, right?
And sounds pretty codependent to me, right?
Correct,
Yeah.
right. Because if we go back to that, I was dependent on the approval of her
Yeah.
in an attempt to find my sense of safety, self-worth, and identity. So as she came back, I was like, look, I got stuff going all up in my house that I have got to fix. And I recognize that you ain't it. And so I have got to go and find out and get my sense of self-worth and value and identity. And I chose to turn to God in order to do that. And really spent a lot of deep work with God and letting him speak into and start to fill those buckets for me. And frankly, that's been a journey I've been on ever since. And so to me, that has helped me break that codependence. That was the starting point. And then after which I started learning a ton about codependency and boundaries. That helped me then really shift out of that, and really break my codependent behavior.
When did you wake up, Jane?
Just listening to you guys talk, I didn't realize it was codependency, but when I gave myself permission to say no to like so many things, church callings, things at school with the kids, things at work, things with my husband, things with all of that. I actually started, my mom saying no but I didn't realize I was doing that until I actually learned what codependency was.
But how did you get there? You're like,
What gave you the
doormat,
power to
yes,
say no?
woman, and then what? You just woke up one morning and were like, oh, I'm
gonna
woke
say
now.
no
I'm going
now.
to start saying no.
Part of it was I was mad because I didn't feel good when I kept saying yes all the time. And so out of
But you'd been
anger-
mad for years, right?
Yeah, but okay, so I think I had
Like
to say,
in the resentment. Because
Yeah,
we talked
yeah,
about with codependence, you're just packing that
Right.
heat, right?
but I think I had to say no to other people before I could say no to my family. And then realize, oh, this is what's going on. And then some wise man sent me on a sabbatical from my life, which was probably the best thing ever, because during that time away from my family, I actually got to say no to extended family also. So that was probably the big breaking point.
Leaning into some self-care.
100%. That I didn't even know I needed, because I'm supposed to be filled up in service and other people.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of that still comes from culture, right? They're like, if you're feeling bad about yourself, go serve.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what about taking care of like our actual emotions and all that stuff? We have to learn how to do that. So, kind of a funny story about codependency for me. I actually thought when they were talking about codependency, this is just my brain and how it works. I'm like, totally, Autumn was 100% codependent. She needs me for everything. For everything. She can't live without me. She is very dependent on everything that I do. So she needs me for everything. So I'm like, yeah, that's totally her.
Yeah.
I didn't know I had
And
any
great to be
codependent-
wanted, I mean, irreplaceable even.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, what? She just like needs me for everything. She can't do anything on her own, And so it wasn't until really like finally I disclosed everything for the third time, and then I started realizing I need to just say things without managing her emotions.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the outcome is, she might be pissed, she might be freaking out, she might be really good and handle it well. And she actually had all of that when I would tell her about different slips or different things, and she would react differently every time. And I was like, regardless of what it is, I have to start being honest with her and just saying, this is where I'm at. This is what's going on with me. This is what I did, and not trying to manage it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me it was, it really kind of first showed up for me really in addiction way, because I did a lot of the codependent blaming. So I remember once getting called out in group. Then I'm like, well, Kayla and I had an argument, so like, of course I masturbated and looking at porn because y'all know how it goes, right? Like, just like totally
Justified.
passing that off as justified and whatever. And I was sitting in group once, and shout out to Scott, but Peterson, I was like, yeah, I kind of got in this big fight, but I don't know, I've been sober this week. And he was like, so it's not because you and Kayla are fighting. That is not the reason why you act out. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, because you fought and you didn't act out, which means fighting's not the reason you act out. You're missing the mark. And I think it was for me like going to those radical thoughts of like, okay, Kayla and I get divorced. Am I still sleeping with a bunch of prostitutes? And having to get to the reconcile of, to me, it comes down to, are you willing to be alone? Am I willing to do the thing alone? Whatever the thing is, can I, and I'm not talking about disconnecting from God, because I would make the argument, because whenever we talk about this, someone will inevitably bring up to me and they're like, well, what about our relationship with Jesus? And I'm like, it is not codependent. It is dependent. The same way my children are dependent on me, right? The same way an infant is dependent. I'm like, no, we are dependent on God. So lean away, because you actually need him to hold you in the grace baby carrier or you're screwed. That's correct.
Right.
So outside of God, for me, it was really coming to some intersections that of like, because y'all know I always did recovery for me, which was a gift I had from the beginning. I'm like, can I stop looking at porn no matter what she does if I get divorced? Like, I have to do this not for anyone else, for any other reason. And I think then that trailed over into other behaviors in other areas where I was being really codependent of like, can I just say no? Like the say no, right? Like, am I willing to be alone? Because for me, that's what it came down to. Am I willing to be alone? Am I willing to do the financial conversation with Autumn and go it alone?
Right.
Even if she doesn't have your back.
It's when I am choosing that I'm actually willing to sever the relationship in order to do the thing I need to do. And that's not me saying in a black and white sense of walking out of here and being like, Kayla, do this now or we're done because I'm meeting my needs. I'm not talking about more gaslighting and ultimatum and being a jerk. I'm talking about, for me, it was, am I actually willing to be alone with my emotion?
Right. Or to suffer a sense of disconnection.
Or suffer a sense of disconnection.
Right. Yeah. Which I think is the part that so many of us are afraid of. I don't want them to be mad at me, ultimately. But that causes so many boundary problems and codependent problems, is when I am unwilling to experience having somebody not like me at the moment or be mad at me at the moment.
Or have to take care of myself,
Right.
and I'm just responsible. This is why people stay at crappy jobs.
Yeah.
This is why people stay in crappy relationships, right? How many abusive relationships, how many tired relationships, how many relationships are there out there that, you know, we all have a friend that we can look at like, what are you doing in that marriage or going to that church or at that job, that we're like, it's terrible. And they're like, I know. You're like, so do the thing. But they don't, because I would rather be in, I think that's the magic sauce. I think it's changing the mindset of, I would rather be alone than in bad connection.
Right.
Yeah.
But in order to have that capacity and power to be alone, I have to get to the place where I have a sense of self-worth and identity.
Yeah.
That I can do it alone. Because if I'm stuck in that kind of, like what I experienced, I am like a planet without an orbit. I am all over the place, right? So that's what kind of really woke me up of like, wow, she's been like this anchor or this rudder for my ship. And I'm like, man, what a terrible position for her to be in, one.
Yeah. She never signed up for it.
Right, and a terrible spot for me to put her in, because now I'm subject to her whims, her emotions, which she's, I'm asking her to be God.
Yeah.
And that's not the position she's meant to be in.
Wait, but I want to ask you a dark question, Jane.
A dark, huh?
Do you think Christy didn't sign up for it?
No. I don't think, I mean, what do you mean?
So I understand this from the perspective
Yeah.
of addiction.
Okay.
So is it my fault that I had a sexual addiction? My real answer, no, it's not. I saw porn when I was 11. I was in an environment that had no
Yeah. You
resourcing,
didn't have a
no help.
choice.
I had I have a family that has a history of sexual addiction, sexual abuse, all this stuff. So did I have choice in the altruistic sense, Back to the Future time machine? Sure. Dude, what 11-year-old boy, what 14, what 16-year-old boy, lost as I was, having the abandonment I had emotionally and spiritually, figuring that out, and the shame. I'll tell you how many figured out. 0.
Yeah.
None. So is it my fault that I got there? No. Is it my fault that I stayed there? 100%. As an adult person, all the acting out behavior, that crap's a choice. Now, I'm not saying I didn't know what I didn't know, and I can't have grace for myself.
Yeah.
So at what point in time, I was bringing it up for Christy, but I'll let you speak from the eye for you and Jeremy.
Okay.
At what point in time do you feel, if you do, we can disagree, do you think your codependency was a choice? Not how you were raised, because of certain,
Yeah.
like, when did you make a choice to live that way? Or did you?
Oh. I don't think I did because I didn't know what it was. And by not knowing what it was, I don't think I can make a clear choice.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's something
That
important.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Because I mean, I can choose today to go back and totally be codependent and live codependent with Jeremy.
Right?
And with my kids. And I still do. And I'm aware of when I do it. And I'm like, dang it. So I'm making a clear choice. But that would be me judging my past self on what I know now. And I don't think I knew then. And so I didn't
Similar
have
to
it.
addiction.
Yeah.
Right. And I would say, and I think, let me see if I can pick up what you're trying to lay down here is like, there's a payoff to her being the center of my universe,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I get to manage her emotions for her, and that can feel good, right, Jane?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? It can feel good to be on the pedestal of and have us all believe happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
Because you get to reap the rewards of
Yeah.
being the top dog in the house.
Well, that becomes a
And-
one up, one down, right?
Right, and you get exactly, you get to take that one up position,
And
which
in recovery,
has,
wives do that.
sure,
Well,
which
betrayed
has its
person, yeah.
benefits.
Yes.
It has its rewards.
Oh, they
and
take the one up all the time.
And it's taught that.
Don't take that as a blanket statement and
Yeah,
get all
yeah,
mad that I'm
no.
saying all the women are that way. But
No, no,
there's
no,
a
no.
camp for sure.
Yeah.
I will tell you, one of the things that I tried to break very, very early on with my family was the saying that if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So
Right.
I actually
Ooh, that's a
taught
pedestal
my
one.
kids, if mama ain't happy, it's okay, you can be. And so that was because mom was crying all the time and the kids
Right.
had no idea why. And it's okay. And so we talked about that and it's like,
If mama ain't
But-
happy, that's okay. You still can be
And I think
happy.
that saying
Yeah.
is a way to, picking up what I'm putting down is,
Yeah.
you have to give up the payoff. That's the
Correct.
alone.
yes.
Yes.
That's the alone. Are you as a spouse willing to give up the one-up position of the pedestal? Are you willing to give up the managing Autumn's emotions? Because you are getting a payoff for doing it. And if you don't think you are, you're full of crap, or you wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
And I think
Right.
that's the being alone, or the pain point is, right, I'm avoiding pain in codependency.
Yes, right.
You have to be willing to do pain.
Yeah.
Chris has to be willing to have Autumn get mad.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't mean he has to sit there and take it on and be boundaryless about it.
Right. Or
Right.
if she gets mad and starts shaming and belittling and all that, yeah, you go ahead and have boundaries and get out of that conversation.
Or in my situation this last week that I brought up on the last episode, go back and listen to it, but is choose accountability.
Right.
Yeah.
I was overwhelmed and overprogrammed because I was trying to make all the accepted people happy. I was trying to make our project down in Arizona and Idaho happy. I was trying to make, so to me it was I was trying to serve everyone, and it was beyond my capacity. Instead of saying no, I kept saying yes. Instead of saying no, I said yes to everything, and I was worried deeply about what everyone else was going to think.
Right.
You have to be willing. That's the way out.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we were to put it at 30,000 feet, how do I stop my codependency? Be willing to do the pain.
Yeah.
Yep.
And be
Relationally.
willing, yeah. And willing to suffer temporary disconnection, or to your point, to walk alone.
Right. So as we wrap the episode, what pain are you going to lean into that you know you've been avoiding in your codependency?
Well, if I track off of the need that the codependent behavior that I was showing up with in the last episode,
Yes.
really what I need to lean into is being willing truly to be vulnerable enough to express my heavy feelings and emotions, even if my wife is also having heavy emotions, and not pretending like she can't handle that or can't name her needs of like, oh, I don't have capacity maybe to hold your pain right now, but I don't know that until I tell her.
Right.
And so until I approach her with that, I can just make up, oh, I don't want to burden her, but I don't know that.
Right.
Maybe that's some connection that we actually both need.
Right. What pain are you going to lean into?
If we're basing it off of what we talked about in that last episode, I just leaning in and talking to Autumn.
No matter how she's showing up.
Yep, just it doesn't matter. I just need to just sit down with her and be like,
And we're not
hey,
talking about waking
this is
her up
where we're
at 2 a.m. and being
Right.
stupid.
No.
No. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
Yep.
having the conversation,
yeah.
it needs
Having
to
the conversation,
be had.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think mine is just being okay with the discomfort.
Yeah, like
like-
which one are you going to be okay with right now? Now being held accountable to
Now
this
being held
group.
accountable.
Which discomfort, Jane?
Yeah, it's just having the conversation that just says, okay, as a recovering codependent, I really want to do this for you, and I'm going to avoid saying this to you, but I'm actually going to say it now.
Do you know? Can you tell us what this is?
No.
But you know what it is.
I know what it is.
You're talking out of. I understand this is your minor child, right? We're not going to call one of your children out, but you know which child, and this is a specific conversation you're referencing.
Yes. Oh, and yeah, Jeremy would know. I'd be
Okay.
like, I totally avoid
as long
it.
as it's specific, we're not.
Yeah.
We're doing this
Not
together.
generalizing. We're
Yeah. I think for me, so I think I'm in it, in canceling some of the things and doing the discomfort. However, James is aware of this. Taking a family vacation, a reasonably long one, and this is going to sound stupid and people are going to make fun of me, so I have some shame about it. Not working. And allowing, because that is going to cost something.
I'm going to hold you to that.
It
Yeah.
will financially cost me something because when I
I'm
don't
gonna
meet with
test you.
clients, I don't get paid.
right.
So one, it will financially cost me something, but two, it will cost.
Yeah.
Unashamed, where it will cost something, and
We'll be fine.
The world will not end.
yes, and not me not choosing to manage that for everyone else in all organizations, but because even Kayla said it when I did it, she was like, "Well, I mean, you sure you don't want to see just like a couple people in the morning?" Which has been my typical MO.
Yeah.
To end up working 4 hours a day on vacation from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Because there's pain there for me because I think if I do that to really choose rest, right? That's the need not getting met.
You choosing the self-care.
Right. So we want to
Leaning on the
know,
man.
what pain are you going to lean into in order to break your codependency? Shoot us an email, all of our names, even Jason back there at Chris, Jane with not a plain Jane, a Jayne, James, Stephen with a V because that's the right way to spell it, at Unashamed and Afraid. Let us know what pain have you chosen to lean into listening to this episode, or hit us up on social media at Unashamed and Afraid. And until we're able to meet again, enjoy that pain. There's beauty on the other side, we promise. Join us for the third episode in this series as we wrap up codependency and continue to be unashamed.